Hey everyone. Hi.
Now, first of all, because I'm running the slides, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of lands on the lands on which we all work and live, and pay respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. I'm on Wurundjeri land, Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations. So we honour their continuing connection to country and special relationship and leadership of community and land. Okay, all right. So here we're really keen to have a really exciting conversation tonight, and we're really keen to share with you as much information as we have. I think that's going to be really valuable for you all. In many ways, it feels like the office has been living and breathing this project for 18 months to 2 years. So we do have lots of insights that we can share with you. And we're really keen to make this webinar a really useful resource for the broader PACFA membership as well. So we aim to discuss the content of the finalised national standards for counsellors and psychotherapists, and I do hope that you've all read them or plan to in the near future. We aim to answer broader questions about the topics of the national standards, about the rationale for them, what we understand the intent to be, and how that's going to affect our membership. And we do aim to make this recording available for everyone afterwards. So that does mean that we're going to have to keep things pretty tight time-wise. We cannot give specific advice or responses to questions about personal circumstances, and I'm sure you will understand why. But also it's important that you're all aware that the information that's discussed here is public. So that's something for you to keep in mind when you're asking your questions. And we cannot guarantee that the information that we discuss here today is exactly what will happen in implementation. We still have a fair bit of time and nuance to go. And we will talk to you about our understanding of the intent, and that's informed by our close relationship with the Department of Health. But there is still going to be things that are developed further as we move through. Hello, Nigel, you're back. Good to see you.
Back. Good to see everybody. Thanks for being here. And yes, a warm welcome and acknowledgement to all of the countries you are sitting on. Very, very exciting times for the counselling and psychotherapy professions in Australia. This is a watershed moment. This is the first time in Australian history that the federal government has taken an interest in counselling or psychotherapy. So it's a huge moment for all of us, and we're very proud and pleased with the way that these national standards have turned out. And it's very easy to see with a glance a significant influence that our leadership has had on these national standards. So we're going to go through the standards in detail. For today is an informational webinar. We have a zero expectation of prior knowledge of what's in the standards as we go through each standard. The domains, the national standards has been broken down by the government's consultants, Allen and Clark, who've been working on this for over 18 months, into 6 domains. They are education and training, professional practice, ethics, competency, diversity and inclusion, and quality assurance, with expectation that there'll be an evaluation of the program at the end. Each domain has 3 categories based upon the career stage of the practitioner. So it's, from our perspective, it's a fairly simple, straightforward approach that very much aligns with PACFA's existing standards and expectations for the professions.
So this was a slide that I was keen to speak to with all of you. And I've taken it, as you can see, as a direct screenshot from the document, because I think it's really important that people understand what the intent of the national standards are. So you can see there that they say that in May 2023, that the Australian government committed to developing national standards. As Nigel said, this is the first time the government has committed any significant amount of money to this particular workforce. So that shows a real intent. The intent followed the Select Committee inquiry, and that was the Select Committee inquiry into suicide prevention and mental health 2021, which Dr. Daistow and myself presented to. And out of that Select inquiry came a set of recommendations, most of which did not relate to counsellors or psychotherapists at all. They related to insufficiencies in the system. However, there was one recommendation that said that it would be good to make more use of this workforce, but that unfortunately that was not likely until there was greater consistency across the profession. And what you can see there, if you can read it, is that it explicitly says noted reservations about the current self-regulatory approach for counsellors and psychotherapists. The committee highlighted the lack of consensus on academic and experiential requirements for registration, and importantly, the impacts on the safe delivery of mental health services. So when I was speaking to the mental health workforce team in 2023, this was a key interest of theirs, how we could address this. And I think what's really exciting about this is that it speaks to the united desire for change for PACFA and from the Department of Health and Ageing. I think the national standards are the first step of that change. So one of the things that I really want to make clear is that this is a process. It has been a consultative and respectful process. It is a staged process. It is a long-term trajectory that we are on towards a situation in which counsellors and psychotherapists are better utilised by the Australian public and consequently also receive better remuneration and better recognition. And this is all good as far as we are concerned. However, anyone suggesting that the national standards are not going to be significant for the workforce or that indeed nothing will change appear to have missed the point of this project. So it's not going to happen overnight and it's not going to negatively affect our membership in any way, I think, but there is change coming. And I think given the difficulties that our members have experienced over a significant period of time in gaining employment and in working in private practice, this can only be a step in the right direction for us. So we're really excited to embrace that change and to work our way through collaboratively through the inevitable challenges that will occur. Okay.
Thanks, Johanna. I'll just echo that word safe. It's the word safe in that sentence. In the whole paragraph, the key word is safe. The implication there is that, unfortunately, very sadly, our profession has not been seen as safe by the mental health sector, by the government, by industry stakeholders. And so this move by the government is about making sure that the provision of counselling and psychotherapy services can be verified, trusted to be safe. And that's exactly what this process is going to do. So this is really good news for PACFA registered counsellors. Thanks, Jan. Okay, so we're going to start here to drop into the detail, and I'll just give you a fair warning. This is going to be detail. I'm going to be reading through the standards, then allowing you, as I'm reading through the standards, for the questions to pop up, and then myself and Johanna to answer those questions, hopefully, as we go along. So we have 3 career stages: stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. Does the slides move there, Johanna?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, there we are.
So stage 1 is practitioners with an AQF 5 to 6 qualification. So that's a diploma or certificate level qualification, including advanced diplomas, with some experience in their field, who can undertake their work with support from other practitioners and who always uphold ethical standards. Career stage 2 is what we would call a certified practicing counsellor within PACFA, which is any practitioner with an AQF 7 to 9 qualification with experience in their field who can manage some complexity and always upholds ethical standards. And then career stage 3 is final stage, the highest stage at present under this system, under this model, in which practitioners with an AQF 7 to 9 qualification have considerable experience in their field and can effectively manage complexity, always upholding ethical standards, and are also potentially able to provide supervision to other practitioners. So all of if you're one of our members, other than student members, you are in stage 2 or stage 3. And the vocational counsellors, the diploma counsellors, are in stage 1. If you're curious about what PACFA thinks about vocational counsellors, it's on our radar. That's all that we can say at this stage, and we will be strategic in our decision making, and we will engage with the sector and engage with government in a meaningful way around that as we move into the future. Right, so it's the Australian qualifications standards, or the Australian qualification framework, and as I've said, 5 to 6 is diplomas, 7 to 9 is a bachelor's, a postgraduate degree, and a master's degree, and 10 is a doctoral degree. Thanks, Jana.
So I think there's something just to flag there, which is that this particular division of the workforce in these 3 ways is actually a great win for PACFA, because this lines up with our registration categories. One of the things that has made life really, really difficult over the last few years has been the confusion over the lack of equivalence between the different standards of different organisations. So we have achieved our core objective, which was making sure that our members are recognised as the best in the field. And indeed, when you look at that, you can see that 2/3 of those categories are our members, and we think that that's going to fit really, really nicely, align really, really nicely with employers and with their expectations of who they want to engage with and how. So I just wanted to kind of make sure that that is flagged for you, because I think that's a really key point.
Okay. So, Jana, there's a question around moving from the AQF 5 to 6 to 7, 8, 9. Shouldn't actually be an issue for anyone who's here on behalf as a PACFA member. If you're not a PACFA member and you've joined, then essentially the answer is yes, you talk to your educational institution to see what kind of credits you can get for your level 5 to 6, your AQF level 5 to 6, and then you complete a level 7 to 9. Usually, if you've done a 5 to 6, you would complete a level 7, and that would be the appropriate training for you that would then make you eligible both for PACFA registration and for moving to career stage 2 in this model. Okay. So domain 1, which is kind of the main domain that we've just talked about. I think there's a bunch of questions that I've just answered live. So if you can take those out there, I'll help with that. So domain 1 is about education and training, and this is probably the most important domain. It's the one really that we've just discussed, and this is the detail of it. So education and training in domain 1 focuses on the key education requirements for counsellors and psychotherapists at each career stage. This includes formal qualification requirements and requirements for supervised placement delivery within formal training programs. So for stage 1, then you would have an AQF 5 to 6, and you would have at least 100 hours of supervised practice within the training program with a minimum of 40 hours of in-person contact whenever possible or online. Stage 2 is an accredited qualification in counselling at AQF level 7 to 9 with less than 750 hours of client contact. And that would mean at least 200 hours of supervised practice placements within the training program with a minimum of 80 hours of in-person client contact whenever possible or online. To move to stage 3, you have more than 750 hours of client contact. So this is, you can see this is equivalent. Stage 2 is PACFA's Certified Practicing Counsellor as it currently exists within our accreditation standards. And level 3 is a registered clinical counsellor, our registration model. So you've got more than 750 hours of client contact, and you have at least 200 hours of supervised practice within the training program, minimum of 80 hours of in-person. So you've already achieved that to get to level 2. Any comments, Johanna?
No, I'm seeing some interesting questions in the chat, and I do want to remind people that we can't really tackle individual situations in this space. But I do think it's worth pointing out that the entire intent of this education and training section is forward-facing. So the expectation that is that the implementation stage will include significant and expansive grandparenting for people who are already registered. So if you are already registered and you're a certified practicing counsellor, you would be expected to be in level 2. It wouldn't matter what your original training was, whether it was originally accredited by PACFA, whether it had the placement requirements of our current accreditation standards or it had the placement requirements of a previous standard, or indeed if you came through the non-accredited pathway and had done a course that was slightly different. There is not an intention to go through the membership weeding out people who don't meet these current requirements. These requirements are about who will be able to be registered in the future. I really wish I could see people nodding to give me some confidence that had made sense to you all.
Okay, let's go to the next slide. Thanks, Johanna.
Sure.
Okay, we then have in the same domain 2.1. So this is domain 2, professional practice, and the professional practice focuses on the practice requirements of counsellors and psychotherapists. This domain includes 3 standards: recency of practice and professional development, clinical supervision, and private practice. So there's a bunch of questions to be answered here for people in the Q&A. Each of the standards are graduated based on career stage. So at level 1, you must have done at least, I was checking these, we looked at these. So for all 3 stages, recency of practice requires at least 150 hours per year or 450 hours over the previous 3 years. So you can either have it in the year just gone, or you can have 450 hours in the previous 3 years, and that is sufficient for you to include recency of practice. And it means that you can essentially take a leave of absence from your registration and come back again without losing your membership. But if you stop practicing essentially for 3 years, then you might have to do some kind of bridging program to rejoin the profession.
This requirement is in line with other allied health professionals. So PACFA members will be well aware that we have already developed our recency of practice standard, and that is indeed what is reflected on this screen, and it comes into account from next year. So we've got significant information on our website if anyone's interested to have a look at the registration standard for recency of practice, and that will probably answer any questions people have.
Thanks, Yana. Next slide. Okay, so for Domain 2, Standard 2.2 is about professional and clinical supervision, and they're very similar. So 1 and 2 are quite similar. So the focus of supervision is on the optimum outcomes for the client and the professional development and self-care of the supervisee. Professional clinical supervision should be undertaken as individual supervision, one supervisor to one supervisee, whenever possible, or group supervision, one supervisor to up to 6 supervisees. So they put a maximum on group supervision if individual supervision is not available. So this is the same for Career Stage 1 and Career Stage 2. Under the focus, I'll keep going, actually, I'll go to the right first. So in terms of focus and formative supervision, the first section is the same for Career Stage 3. Some slight shift to the type of supervisions, indicating that we can potentially allow peer supervision, where people can work together for mutual benefit, rotating the roles of supervisor and supervisee, providing collegial critique and enhancement of each other's clinical work. So there's some questions coming up in the chat in terms of what constitutes a supervisor. At this stage, these are all questions for implementation. It is our hope, and what we are working towards. We are working on the assumption that we will be implementing the standards and that we will have some influence over the standards. So what we already do, which we believe is the right thing to do for the professions and also the people that we serve, we will continue to do wherever we can, making sure that we attend to these standards. So in terms of the number of supervision hours at Stage 1, Career Stage 1, we've got 20 hours of supervision per year for less than 400 hours of client contact, and 30 hours of supervision per year for more than 400 hours of client contact, and has no ability to provide supervision to others. So the difference that then you see in Stage 2 is that the amount of supervision is halved. So there's an expectation that people with less qualifications, less training, are going to be requiring more supervision from experienced practitioners. So in Career Stage 2, as in Career Stage 3, the requirement for supervision is 10 hours per year for less than 400 hours of client contact, and 15 hours of supervision per year, more than 400 hours of client contact. So this is exactly the same as our current expectations around annual clinical supervision. There's no change here for PACFA members. Down on the bottom of Stage 3, you can see under ability to provide supervision that only clinicians in Stage 3 are going to be able to provide supervision, and only with completion of a recognised training program, with the expectation that the supervisor have more experience than the supervisee and professional seniority and skill development, except for when peer supervision is undertaken. There's questions about vocational status. If you are vocational and you can be grandfathered into Stage 1, but you will not be grandfathered into Stage 2 or 3. If you're currently in Stage 2, you're grandfathered into Stage 2. If you're currently in Stage 3, you'll be grandfathered into Stage 3. That is our expectation. Audit. So the expectation here, and these are identical across the stages, and it is expected that all counsellors and psychotherapists will maintain a record of supervision for the duration of any supervisory relationship, that an audit of clinical supervision records will be conducted on a rolling 3-year basis, with all practitioners being audited once every 3 years. So essentially what you would be doing now, which is collecting your own data in terms of the number of hours of supervision that you have relative to the number of hours of client work that you do, the name and details of your supervisor, all which are on the PACFA supervision verification form. That's exactly what you would be doing. The change for PACFA is this expectation that there will be a rolling audit conducted on a 3-year basis, with the expectation that all practitioners will be audited once every 3 years. This is an issue and a challenge for us because of the amount of work, the sheer amount of work involved in conducting audits, which is a lot of work. Okay, private practice. So everybody go back here. We need to private practice. This is the one that everybody's got questions about. So let's answer the questions. Okay. Career Stage 1, and we'll try and be as transparent here as we think. So remember that we are PACFA. We are concerned with Stages 2 and Stages 3. At this point in time, we are not terribly concerned with Stage 1. The standard here is now made identical. Yeah, the wording is the same. So you're able to work in private practice with, It's different for stage one in that you're able to work in private practice with limited scope when a conditional license is obtained and endorsement from a peak body is received. Now, in the previous iterations of this document, what they specified was that private practice for people at stage one and stage two was very much about, are you in a rural and remote area? Is there a skills shortage in a particular area that requires you to work in private practice? In other words, can you make a case? Now, what this would look like in practice, that's up to the implementation stage. We don't know yet. We will be doing our own work. We'll be doing our work with government. But essentially, we would be suggesting that if you're in stage one, the entire purpose of this project, in some respects, is to limit the people without sufficient qualification or experience to go out into private practice, because it's about safety. It's about risk. That's what the government's trying to manage here, and that's what our role is to manage too. Similarly, if you finished your degree and you want to go out, and there's this saying in our field, you want to go out and you hang up your shingle. We don't want you. The government doesn't want you. The people of Australia, the sector doesn't want you going out and hanging up your shingle straight out of your degree. They want you to get qualified. They want you to get some experience. They want you to get some supervision. They want you to get some hours under your belt. We want to feel safe, to be able to trust that you can keep people safe all on your own, because private practice is very lonely, or can be very lonely. You can be very isolated and it become a silo, an echo chamber all of your own. So it's about really making sure that people are kept safe. And the expectation is that if you're in stage three, you would get a license. And under the current PACFA model, essentially, when you get to stage three, when you become a registered clinical counsellor, you would automatically get your license and endorsement. Have I represented that accurately enough, Johanna?
I think you have. I have a few comments about this because it's a really important point. This is partly what was being referred to in that executive summary that I read at the beginning of the document. So that said, I do think that the government has been responsive to the high level of concern about this, and there has been some flexibility introduced. Like Nigel articulated, it was originally in line with high areas of need, and now it has been articulated as a limited scope of practice. It will be up to the implementation period and the registry bodies when the time comes to identify exactly what that looks like. There's no point asking us now. It has not been defined, but that does not mean that it is not a reasonable idea. And from what I can see, other allied health professions might be interested in this idea for licensing for private practice as well. I don't know an accountant or a marketing graduate or someone who's in a much, much less important, less risky area of business who would walk straight out and set themselves up as a consultant a day after their graduation. And yet we accept that in counselling without even a second thought. So this is a difficult change for the profession, but at PACFA we think it's a very reasonable one and probably long overdue. And in fact, it was commonly accepted practice until the late 2010s that both PACFA and other organisations all recommended that vocational counsellors should not be in private practice. So it's actually quite a recent change that has happened. Of course, the thing that needs to be spoken about in that context is the need for recent graduates and vocational counsellors to be able to find employment and to be able to have opportunities to receive income and pay their mortgages. I think that's going to be the really exciting pivot through the implementation period, is seeing the enthusiasm of government to provide opportunities for graduates and early career practitioners to get their skills in places like the National Early Intervention Service, in the opportunities that are coming through in aged care, in the state-funded school counselling positions that are opening up in a whole range of different places. So, there has never been a lack of need for counsellors, government-funded services nationally. There has always been a lack of opportunity, and I think it's going to be really, really exciting to see those opportunities expand to the workforce that those positions are ideally suited for, which is, the counsellors and psychotherapists who are registered in this model. So that's really exciting. And naturally, we have already started doing work, and people who read our e-newsletter will know that the opportunities for employment have actually been growing, quite significantly, even just through the process of this National Standards Project. There are a couple of other questions about private practice, but they tend to link to GST or other factors, and I'd be really happy to talk to them at the end. So if that's okay with people, we'll just move on. Just a question about license. License is effectively it's a permit. It says you can do something. It does not need to be issued by a state or territory government to be legal. It will be issued by your registration body. That's how licensing works in this space. So, okay. Thanks, Nigel. Is there anything you wanted to add to that?
I think that's it.
Great. We'll just move on.
Somebody's asking, will the ACA and PACFA have the same requirements in relation to private practice? We anticipate that this will have to be the case. And we expect that this is about consistent national standards. And either there'll be one body. If there's two bodies, then those bodies will have to have consistent standards. And that's the whole point. That's the whole point. That's precisely what the government is trying to do here.
Look, and I'm happy to revisit this point again later because I think it's really important. But just for anyone who's wondering, and a key part of this is the fact that registration will be mandatory. So you won't be able to practice without being registered, and you will have to be registered. So these issues these matters will all be handled in a consistent, user-friendly way across the registration agency. And whilst you may have to apply, it would be part of your registration process. It would be like applying for your certification or giving information about your insurance. It would not be onerous or difficult. Okay, over to you, Nigel.
So the requirements for private practice are slightly different for 1 relative to 2 and 3. So even though 3 looks different, I believe it's the same. So if anybody wants to correct me on that, they may. So if you're in stage 1, the requirements for private practice are that you work within a specified scope of practice, operating in private practice only for low-risk presentations. You meet legal and ethical dimensions specific to your state and territory and federal legislation. You work to professional standards by practicing within the bounds of individual professional competence and by keeping skills and knowledge up to date. You provide clients with an agreement that includes information about the services that they want to receive, how these services will be delivered, and how information or data about them will be protected. This agreement needs to be in language and a format that can easily be understood. Okay, so then 2 and 3 are identical. It just starts a paragraph down. So you're meeting the ethical dimensions, you're working professional standards, and you provide clients with an agreement about how they be protected, how their information and data will be protected in a language they can understand. Okay, there's lots of questions about the license. We don't know. We don't know. We got this on Monday as well, everyone. We'll figure it out. If you are registered, you'll get a license. If you're registered, at this stage we anticipate, if you are registered as a registered clinical counsellor, you get a license. If you are a certified practicing counsellor and you can justify getting a license, you'll get a license. Registration and licenses are not equivalent, but they will go alongside each other. Like when you're on a register, your name goes on a register. When you get a license, you get a license. Now, there'll be people in stage 2 who are on the register who will also be listed as having a license. We anticipate that everybody, the registered clinical counsellor in stage 3, will all have licenses. That's what we anticipate. License and an endorsement. Yeah, Hannah, you got something on that one? What's the difference between a license and an endorsement?
I think a license is the implementation of an endorsement. I think what they're doing there is they're saying we're going to have more conversations and implementation to work out exactly how this plays out. And so, the language may change, but the intent is there to make sure that the community can have absolute confidence that when they walk into a private practice, they are not a counsellor's first client after graduation. They are not taking a suicidal teenager to someone who simply has never worked in that space before, doesn't necessarily know their scope of practice, and doesn't necessarily have the context they need to refer off. Or someone who is under such strong financial pressure that becomes problematic for their ability to work within their scope of practice. So, I think the licensing is a really key piece of quality control, but it doesn't need to be something that particularly alarms PACFA members. This process is going to take years. People who are currently working in private practice as a certified practicing counsellor are extremely likely to complete their 750 hours before this licensing program gets anywhere near them. And I think that's a really important point. This is not something that's going to be implemented on the 1st of January. It's unlikely to impact on people who are in private practice now who have recently started. It's something that will work, that will look forward.
Yeah. So we're anticipating a national model for this. It won't be a state-based model. I think there's been some bit of maybe misinformation out there around state-based models, but it'll be under the overall regulator will be AHPRA, and we would sit under AHPRA and authorised by AHPRA, and there'll be some things that we'll need to do to align with that. We don't think very much. We've been preparing for this now for a number of years. We're on the right track, but we are certainly we're anticipating a national regulatory model, not a state-based regulatory model like they have in the US.
And I will talk a little bit about that model at the end. We're not talking about AHPRA regulation as it is for AHPRA now. We're talking about the new model that's been proposed through the Dawson Review. And many of you may have heard us talk about that, but it may be new for some of you, and it's something we've been discussing in e-news for a while. So we're trying to provide a lot of information about a lot of things, so please be patient with us.
People are saying, should people join PACFA? 100%. Of course we're going to say that. I had a supervision group today, and it was news to me that they weren't registered with PACFA, and they were sitting on the fence and they were waiting to see how it all turned out. And like, oh, do I need registration? What's in it for me? The ACA is cheaper, and what's in it for you is credibility. Longevity is the grandfathering that you'll get by being in. So if you've got supervisees, or if you've got people asking for advice, then we're super clear. We think you should, if people are on the fence around registration, register.
So that's a really important point for people. The grandparenting, as ever, whatever it is very likely to only apply to people who actually are registered. So if you're not registered, these standards will apply in full. And that is in itself a really interesting application. I can see in the chat and the questions, people are reverting to historic information and not necessarily understanding how dynamic the space is at the moment and how transformational this change is. The regulation change to mandatory registration is part of the government's agenda across a whole range of allied health professionals. The national standards are specific to us, but we are only part of a bigger puzzle, which is exactly, where we want to be. But things like title protection are also part of that package. So please, it's really appreciated if you can look at this with goodwill and an open mind, keeping in mind that there is a lot of moving parts and that the current situation has not been working very well for a very long time. So it's really exciting to think about the opportunities this might present for our new graduates and for our early career counsellors in particular. Over to you, Nigel.
All right. So ethics, domain 3. Ethics provides specific guidance on ethics related to practicing as a counsellor or psychotherapist. The ethics domain has 6 focus areas: best interests of clients, informed consent, confidentiality, personal and professional development, professional boundaries, and ethical supervision of counsellors. Under Standard 3.1, Ethics and Professional Conduct, it is expected that everybody meets the same ethical requirements. Just double checking that. Yes, I believe that everyone's the same. That everybody would act in the best interests of clients by treating them with care and compassion, delivering non-judgmental professional services, respecting their individuality and autonomy. We would all take reasonable steps not to harm the client during counselling sessions, and if they are unable to continue to be of professional assistance, refer to the client to a colleague or other professional as appropriate. We all avoid conflicts of interest and do not exploit the client for personal, professional, political or financial gain.
Next slide.
Yes, please. This is a comment there. All right. So focus area 3.1.2, informed consent. Again, I think that this is the same. Yes, for everybody. We would all inform the client about the purpose, risks, limits, and costs of the proposed services at or before the first meeting and throughout the relationship. We would confirm that the client understands this information, and we obtain written consent for them to participate in counselling. We ensure that the client freely consents to participate at all stages of the counselling process, and we respect their right to discontinue at any time. Confidentiality is similarly expected across the board as well, where we provide the highest levels of confidentiality to protect the privacy of clients and create the trust necessary for counselling or psychotherapy. We inform the client of their right to confidentiality and explain the limits of this duty of care. We take steps to prevent the unauthorised disclosure of the client's personal information, and we respect the right of a child or young person to confidentiality unless there are issues of significant harm to that person or other people or other statutory requirements. Sharing information with parents, carers, or teachers should be with the full agreement of the child or young person. We comply with any legal requirements relating to confidentiality and record keeping, and where necessary, we inform clients of these legal responsibilities insofar as it may affect them. Okay. Any comment there, Johanna?
No, I'm just trying to answer a question at the same time, so sorry. Flicking between screens. Oh.
No, PACFA is not going to become obsolete. It'll be called a self-regulating profession. So PACFA gets regulated, but at this stage, maybe we don't know what's going to happen in 20 years' time. We don't have that crystal ball. Will we have the APRA logo? We won't be under APRA. So it doesn't quite work that way.
All right. And that was something I was trying to tackle just before, because I know every time we mention APRA, people assume that all APRA-regulated professions are the same.
And Jodie's written AHPA, so I'm not sure what that's in reference to. You will be automatically grandfathered allocated stage 2, 3, possibly yes, answer life. Yep. Has this been a collaborative initiative? This project, in essence, is a collaborative effort because all stakeholders with ACA and PACFA specifically mentioned as the key stakeholders have been consulted by the consultants.
Sorry, what was that?
Have ACA and PACFA been collaborative? We've been collaborative in the sense that we've both worked closely and participated in meetings with the consultants towards the development of these standards.
And we've participated in meetings together with the consultants about this. And actually, we've been largely in agreement across significant, important key matters across the whole project, because we all understand that it's really important that all of our members are able to get better opportunities in this sector. So we have key disagreements about what that exactly looks like. You can see that we actually have both compromised in this space. And I think that's because we have your goodwill in mind. And if I can just say to someone, it's way too early to be talking about what logo we're going to be using on your business card. It's way too early.
Okay. So focus area 3.1.4, expectations around personal and professional development. And again, the expectations are the same across all three stages, in that we would all practice within the boundaries of our training, experience, and competence, and accurately represent our credentials and services when advertising. We maintain professional competence through ongoing CPD and attend to our own personal wellbeing. We maintain professional standards online, just as we would in person, and we avoid engaging in online activities that could harm the professional reputation or the trust placed in the profession. We undertake appropriate, regular, and ongoing supervision and debriefing to develop skills, monitor performance, and sustain professional accountability. In terms of the ethical supervision of counsellors, this only applies to stage 3 counsellors who have done appropriate training and have approval from the relevant body. Stage 3 supervisors are expected to maintain clear and appropriate boundaries between the supervisory relationship and any other personal, professional, or evaluative relationship, such as being a teacher or educator or having someone as an intern, they may have with a supervisee, which is an individual over whom they have a supervisory, evaluative, or instructional role. A supervisor does not engage in or nor allow any form of exploitative or coercive behaviour in the supervisory process, including any undue influence, manipulation, or abuse of power, and actively works to promote the supervisee's professional development while safeguarding their wellbeing and autonomy. Anything else from you, Johanna?
No.
Okay. Professional boundaries. We're not sure why the third column always is differently. But I think that we think that these are identical. If there's anything if someone disagrees with that, let us know in the chat or the Q&A. So, professional boundaries across the board. We establish and maintain appropriate boundaries around the counselling relationship. Where possible, we avoid, I'll just almost take out the where possible, we avoid dual and multiple relationships. I appreciate people in small towns with clients that could impair their objectivity, our professionalism, or create conflicts of interest. If such relationships are unavoidable, for example, in a rural or regional community, we take responsibility for clarifying and managing boundaries and protecting confidentiality, including discussing this within professional supervision. We do not provide counselling or psychotherapy services when our functioning is impaired by alcohol or drugs, whether licit or illicit. We exercise all reasonable care before entering into a personal or business relationship with former clients If we take into account the time that has elapsed since counselling and psychotherapy has ended, then counsellors should not engage in sexual activity with a former client or anyone closely related to the former client for at least 5 years after the end of the professional relationship. Any comments there, Johanna?
No, I suppose I need to point out how important this all is to government, that they have felt the need to articulate these matters in such detail for the benefit of the profession. I think this will go a long way to in reinforcing the credibility and professional respect that you all deserve as this is all articulated in a place where it can be really easily referred to and understood in line with the upper professions, and probably in line with the other broader allied health professions who I suspect are also. Interestingly enough, when I was talking to some fellow allied health organisations this week about the fact that our national standards have been released and that they had licensing, there was great enthusiasm from other organisations who were like, well, that's what we need. So, we really are leading the way in this project, and it's a tremendously exciting time.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Okay, competency. Domain 4. Competency focuses on the attributes of counsellors and psychotherapists to work within the sector effectively and safely. The domain contains 2 standards: professional identity and core skills. Professional identity and core skills, including technology and digital practice. So the differences here in the language that's used to describe the different areas. I'll start with, I might have to work through them all individually just so that we can pick up the nuances in the language. So at stage 1, you would have a broad theoretical and technical knowledge of counselling and psychotherapy or psychotherapy. You're able to use cognitive, technical, and communication skills to analyse relevant counselling and or psychology information, including theories and risks, to develop therapeutic responses and interventions collaboratively with clients. You would actively monitor your own competence through supervision and be willing to consider any views expressed by your clients and your colleagues. You are able to deliver the services that you are offering under supervision, and you carry out those professional activities for which you have established your competence to practice. Practices in new areas, can only be undertaken after appropriate education, training, and supervision. At stage 2, you have advanced theoretical and technical knowledge in counselling and or psychotherapy. You have advanced cognitive, technical, and communication skills and are able to select and apply methods to analyse critically, evaluate, and transform relative counselling and or psychology information, including theories and risks, to develop therapeutic responses and interventions collaboratively with clients. You actively monitor your competence through supervision and are willing to consider any views expressed by clients or colleagues. You are able to deliver the services being offered competently and carry out only those professional activities for which you have established your competence to practice. And practice areas that are new should only be undertaken after appropriate education, training, and supervision, and when developing skills in the new specialty area, take steps to ensure the competence of your work and protect others, in particular your clients, from possible harm. So at stage 3, the language shifts a little bit to having an advanced and integrated understanding of a complex body of knowledge in counselling and or psychotherapy. You would have expert, specialised cognitive and technical skills in counselling and or psychotherapy to independently analyse critically, reflect on and synthesize complex relevant counselling and or psychology information, problems, concepts and theories to develop therapeutic responses and interventions collaboratively with clients. You would actively monitor your competence through supervision, and you're willing to consider any views expressed by clients or colleagues. You're competent to deliver the services being offered and carry out only those professional activities for which you have established your competence. And you would practice in areas new to you only after appropriate education, training and supervision. When developing skills in the new specialty areas, take steps to ensure the competence of your work and protect others, particularly the client, from possible harm.
So I think, Nigel, if you wouldn't mind, I would just add a little bit to this. And I would just point out that this provides a really nice framework which recognises and supports the role of organisations such as PACFA in providing specialised certification. So many of you will have seen in e-news that we have been working really hard with our colleges to make entry to the college a certification, which is a way of recognising advanced skills and advanced training in an area of particular of additional training. So we have the College of Psychotherapy, and we have the College of Supervision and the College of Relationship Counselling. We have also have a College of Creative and Experiential Therapies and Indigenous Healing Practices. They are performing a slightly different function at this point, although I have no doubt the certification is on the horizon for both of them. So the national standards provide a really nice baseline to make sure that the profession is well respected for providing core, safe, high quality counselling and psychotherapy. However, it also provides the opportunity to recognise advanced skill and training through this area of personal competence. And there is an expectation that people will undertake appropriate training before they declare that they're working in an area, working with a particular cohort. And that is a part of this broader package of recognising the expertise of counsellors and psychotherapists more broadly. Is there anything you want to add to that, Nigel?
No, just that's all fine. Thanks. Yeah, I know. This is just to clarify. These are the government standards. Yeah, there's vagueness. This is a government document. This is just let's take a step back. This is a doc. This is not a PACFA document.
Oh, no.
This is a document that's been released by the Australian federal government Department of Health, Disability and Aged Care in order to establish national standards for counsellors and psychotherapists across Australia. Okay, thanks. Yep, next slide.
Sorry.
Okay, so responsibility to the profession, and only slight changes here. So there's slight changes. Oh, they're subtle, but they're there. Okay. So focus area 4.1.2, responsibility to the profession. At stage 1, you would understand the importance of upholding the values, integrity and ethics of the profession, understand the importance of celebrating excellence in counselling and psychotherapy practices, and participate in the activities of these professions, representing honestly and accurately your membership status, qualification, training and competence. At stage 2, you would uphold the values, integrity and ethics of the profession, support efforts to celebrate excellence in counselling and psychotherapy, and participate in activities of the profession, and honestly and accurately represent your membership status, qualification, training and competencies. While at stage 3, you would uphold and foster, that's the addition there, you're upholding and fostering the values, integrity and ethics of the profession, and also celebrating excellence in counselling and psychotherapy practices and participating in the activities of the profession. Under focus area 4.1.3, working with colleagues and other professionals. Again, subtle differences here between 1 and I think 2 and 3 are identical. So at career stage 1, you are able to treat colleagues and other professionals with mutual respect, fairness and honesty. You understand the need to establish positive working relationships and communication with colleagues and other professionals that enhance the services to the client. And you respect confidentiality about clients in all communications with colleagues and other professionals. For stages 2 and 3, you treat colleagues and other professionals with mutual respect, fairness and honesty. You endeavour to establish positive working relationships and communication with colleagues and other professionals that enhance services to the client. And you respect and are mindful of confidentiality about clients in all communications with colleagues and other professionals, understanding the need to avoid soliciting clients away from other counsellors.
And I think there, someone's just made the comment that shouldn't all stages avoid soliciting clients away from other counsellors, and of course, yes, that would be expected.
Well, this is why we come back to this expectation that stage 1, the government's expectation is that stage 1 really isn't in private practice. So there should be no solicitation. That's an important point to note.
So it's implicit.
Do we know the answer to why the specialist level got removed?
Yes, and I can speak to that. I can speak to that at the end with more kind of general questions.
Okay. So promoting an effective therapeutic relationship. This is identical across the 3 stages. So we would all develop and maintain an effective and respectful therapeutic relationship with the client, creating a shared sense of trust and empathy, having a general agreement about the goals and purpose of interventions, having a broad agreement about how to achieve those goals, a shared understanding of the area of competence and when and how referrals to other professionals might be made, and we are prepared and managed, the endings are prepared and managed for all counselling and psychotherapy relationships. In terms of applying theories in practice, we've got some differences in expectations from categories 1, 2 and 3, where a category, it's career stage 1, would assess relevant counselling or psychotherapy theories and research to develop appropriate therapeutic interventions or responses for the client. Career stage 2 would develop appropriate therapeutic interventions or responses for the client, informed by an assessment of relevant counselling or psychotherapy theory and research. And stage 3 would research and apply relevant counselling or psychotherapy theory for appropriate therapeutic intervention or response for broad or specialised client populations. Anything there, Gianna?
No, I think that's all good. Really important to have it so clearly articulated.
Yeah, okay. Okay, career stage, for identifying and working with risks. So stage 1 is career stage 1 is slightly different to stages 2 and 3. Where under career stage 1, you would identify and analyse risks, including suicidal risks, self-harming behaviours and symptoms of trauma, and develop responses in relation to those risks in collaboration with the client. So there's an inference here that's different to stages 2 and 3. There's an inference here around referral, like an expectation that if you're out of your depth at stage 1, that you're going to refer to somebody that you can trust to be able to handle the level of trauma, risk, suicidality, and self-harm that might be presenting. Because it's super important that we recognise our own limitations and competence in managing such risks, and we seek assistance or make referrals where appropriate. So that applies throughout, that we recognise limitations, manage risks, and seek assistance or referrals where appropriate. I'll just focus on the top section now, which I think is identical for stages 2 and 3, which is that at stages 2 or 3, you would identify, critically analyse and evaluate risks, including suicidal risk, self-harming behaviours, and symptoms of trauma, and develop therapeutic responses or interventions in relation to those risks in collaboration with the client. In terms of communication and digital practice, I think these are the same. No, slightly different at stage 3. So for stages 1 and 2, you would transmit counselling or psychotherapy information and skills to counselling or psychotherapy sector audiences. You're able to use digital technology such as telehealth to deliver counselling and psychotherapy to clients, and take reasonable steps to ensure the technology used supports client privacy and confidentiality. The big inference here, of course, is that we all need to be trained in the use of digital technology, and we know that we're all expected to be able to provide the benefit of our skills and expertise through digital technologies. So that's the same for stage 2. Stage 3, slightly different in that it adds, interprets, and transmits knowledge, skills, and ideas. So knowledge, skills, and ideas. So new ideas would be kind of expected at career stage 3, not expected at career stage 1 and 2. And that those ideas, knowledge, and skills transmitted to specialist and non-specialist counselling and or psychotherapy sector audiences, and similarly able to use digital technology, telehealth, take reasonable steps to ensure privacy and confidentiality. Under evaluation, so the difference here is between 1 and then 2 and 3. So under evaluation, you would be able to evaluate and understand the importance of the evaluation of your work, promote continuous improvement in your counselling and psychotherapy practice. Stage 2 and 3, you are understanding and applying evaluation approaches to promoting continuous improvement in your counselling or psychotherapy work. Okay, thanks. Next slide, Jana. Domain 5, diversity and inclusion. So diversity and inclusion focuses on the attributes of counsellors and psychotherapists necessary to respect diversity, foster cultural safety, and respond to the impact of discrimination. The domain contains 2 standards, respecting diversity and understanding the impact of discrimination. And these are identical across the board. Okay. Yes. So we would all understand our own values, beliefs, and assumptions, and seek to limit any potential harmful impact of these in our work with our clients. We respect diversity by not discriminating against the client based on their race, colour, disability, ethnicity, culture, gender, sexual identity, lifestyle, age, religious, spiritual, or political beliefs, or on any other basis. We give careful consideration to whether we are competent to work with clients who have come from diverse groups or have special needs. They've separated respecting diversity from cultural responsiveness, and they've defined cultural responsiveness in terms of differently for each career stage now. So stage 1 is expected to be able to recognise and explore with the client the perspectives that underpin their understanding of identity, culture, values, and worldview, and respectfully engage with people who have culturally diverse beliefs. At stage 2, you're expected to understand the significance and impact of your own identity, culture, language, values, and worldview in your work with clients, and you're able to apply an intersectional lens in your approach to complexities around culture and diversity. And at stage 3, you are able to reflect on aspects of your own identity, culture, values, and worldview that have most influenced your sense of self, and you're able to work on your own preconceptions and biases when developing responses or interventions with clients. You would be able to expected to be able to consult with relevant community members to inform your work with and for people from those diverse identities and backgrounds. Anything to add there, Johanna?
Nope.
Thank you. Okay. Cultural safety. Okay, these are the same across all levels. I'll let you know where the difference is. Okay. So under cultural safety, we are expected to make initial and ongoing risk assessments regarding clients' safety and comply with safeguarding guidance appropriate to the therapy setting, taking into account our own limits of competence and skill at a stage 1, 2, or 3 level as set out by these national standards for the career stage that you are at. Standard 5.2, understanding the impact of discrimination. Again, subtle differences between 1 and 2 and 3 are the same. So at career stage 1, you would be expected to identify and analyse the impact of discrimination, prejudice, displacement, and oppression on client mental health and develop client-focused responses in recognition of this impact. And at stages 2 and 3, you would be expected to identify, critically analyse, and evaluate the impact of discrimination, prejudice, displacement, and oppression on client mental health and develop interventions and strategies informed by this awareness. Anything to add there?
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Nope. I think it's well, actually, I suppose what I would say is that people who have been, well, that it's really nice to see throughout the document the positioning of career stage 3 as the leaders of the profession, as the leaders through supervision, as the leaders in the determination and clinical activity related to cultural safety. Like there is I think that's showing a great deal of faith and confidence in registered clinical counsellors and in their role in the profession. So I'm sure you're all seeing and appreciating that with me.
Answering the question in the chat. Okay, quality assurance, domain 6. Quality assurance focuses on maintaining professional standards and integrity within counselling and psychotherapy practice. It outlines practitioners' responsibilities in upholding public confidence in the profession, addressing conduct concerns appropriately, engaging constructively with complaints processes, and understanding the responses to breaches of professional standards. Focus Area 6.1.1 requires that we do not undermine public confidence in our profession. And the expectation is the same for all 3 career stages. We do not conduct ourselves in our counselling-related activities in ways that could undermine the profession's reputation or public confidence, either in our role as a counsellor or psychotherapist or in the work of other counsellors or psychotherapists. We do not use social media in a way that brings the profession into disrepute, such as making derogatory or insulting remarks about another counsellor or psychotherapist. Anything to add, Anna?
No, very important. Worth considering that for many people, their personal and professional lives blend. Social media is a bit of a minefield of what happens in that space. Nigel reminded me just in our conversation before that this is a particular concern of a whole range of allied health professions about the conversations that happen. And in many ways, it's often about where the conversation happens. The conversation itself may be well-intentioned and reasonable, but that's one of the reasons why organisations like PACFA have our communities, and that's why we aim to build our communities, is so that you have a safe space for conversations about professional identity and practice, other than having those conversations conducted on Facebook or places like Facebook. Okay, back to you, Nigel.
Yes. Okay, so addressing professional conduct concerns. There's actually a question about this in the chat. Okay, it's identical for all 3? Yes. But then the next one is different. So all counsellors and psychotherapists at each career 2 and 3 would address professional conduct concerns through the appropriate channels by being when aware of professional conduct concerns, We would first seek to address the matter directly with the practitioner concerned, where it is safe and appropriate to do so. Where appropriate, we would consider mediation or professional development opportunities prior to formal complaints escalation. Where direct resolution is not appropriate or where the conduct concerns cannot be resolved or remedied after discussion with the practitioner concerned, we would report substantiated concerns to the relevant body, which may or may not be PACFA, and we'll come back to that. We would ensure that all reports are made in good faith, based on reasonable grounds, and focused on protecting client and public interests. We do not initiate, participate in, or encourage the filing of ethics complaints that are unwarranted, lacking substantiation, or intended to harm a professional rather than to protect clients or the public. Okay. Complaints and enforcement mechanisms, 6.1.3. The first section is the same for all three. So we would all, at each stage, career stage, cooperate with investigations, proceedings, and requirements of the relevant complaints body. Again, we don't know who that might be yet. At this stage, it would be PACFA, but that could change in the future, having jurisdiction over those accused of breaching those standards. We would respond to complaints in a timely and professional manner. If you are a supervisor, where a supervisee is under investigation, supervisors are required to cooperate with investigations, including where an assessment of their supervision is required. So this could result in something that's a little bit new to what we might imagine is happening now, but we think it's a good thing. We think we're elevating the expectations of supervision, and in addition to the collegial, the supportive, the encouraging, the educational aspects of supervision, there is going to be, the government believes, the people of Australia believe that the sector wants supervisors to actually provide a supervisory role in relation to their supervisees. None of this is going to happen overnight. As and when it does happen, there'll be lots of information and education around expectation. Removal from practice. This is answering one of the questions. I'm answering that question as well, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want me to do the typing because you're doing the all-important talking?
All right. Removal from practice. Okay. Each level, it's the same. And they've got thank you, Helen and Clark, for having the columns the same size this time. So each career stage, you would understand that breaches of professional standards may result in proportionate responses to protect client and public interests. These responses may include the requirement for additional professional development, the requirement for additional supervision, practice restrictions, temporary suspension as appropriate. You would recognise that removal from practice may occur as a last resort for serious breaches of these standards where other measures have not adequately protected public interests. It's all about safety and protecting public interests. Thanks, Johanna. Next slide.
And that's the end of it.
Okay, good. So can you talk in some detail about this, because this is the bit that people were confused about? What's the emerging model? Maybe give a bit of a backstory, Johanna, so that people get a contextual understanding of where's this coming from. It's not coming out of the blue. This is the end point of a long sequence of long consultations, long papers, lots of government interdepartmental and stakeholder consultation across the entire allied health and indeed health workforce over, I guess, the last 5 to 6 years now.
Yes. So I think it's interesting because this is something we've been talking about at board level and at council. I've also been talking about it with leadership groups, and it really is a bit of a snowball, and it's really been gathering a lot of speed over the last 12 to 18 months in particular. Basically, when the Labor government came in, they were really determined to do something about health. I think they looked back on their previous period in government and they felt that it was a thorny problem that they really hadn't got better, hadn't solved to the degree that they would have liked. Certainly the problems around quality assurance, efficiency, and extremely expensive services have just continued to grow. And even with the hugely ambitious and very popular NDIS, the government has continued to find health funding and health service provision an incredibly difficult political problem. And so when they got back into government, they were very keen to address some of the underlying inefficiencies and structures that were making it difficult to provide better services. And then with COVID, they had a really good example of why things didn't work, or how things didn't work is probably what I'm getting at, particularly in relation to mental health care. During COVID, you will know that counsellors and psychotherapists were seriously underutilised, and that's been a key part of our advocacy since I joined the organisation. So in many ways, counselling and psychotherapy has a front row seat for a broader program of health reform. Now, that health reform took a couple of different places. The scope of practice review was looking at what individual clinicians did. Were they doing the right thing? Was a turf war between the professions stopping everyone from getting ahead? And some of you will undoubtedly think yes. In addition, there was this review, which probably is a bit dry and may have gone under the radar for a lot of people. It was fundamentally a review of AHPRA. And it was conducted by, I think she's a lawyer, Sue Dawson. It's been an expansive consultation process. It's been going for 2 years. There were numerous meetings. We were invited to multiple meetings, lots of people in the room. And everyone was talking about what were the real problems in health regulation, what was stopping health professionals working together in the most efficient way, what was stopping clients and patients from getting the care they needed. And there were a range of conclusions that were reached. And I'm not going to go through them all because there's now 3 reports that articulate it. But one of the problems that wasn't really originally part of that brief, but became quite prominent, and it was described to me as the elephant in the room, was the utilisation of self-regulated health professions. And so for people who haven't thought about this in the past, obviously counselling and psychotherapy is a self-regulated health profession. So are a whole range of other important, well-regarded professions: exercise physiology, speech pathology, audiology. There's 37, I think, according to the AHPRA list of those professions. And they all face a range of different challenges. Social workers are another one, dietitians, where maybe they get a little bit of government funding through Medicare, maybe they don't. Maybe they get employed, maybe they don't. There's a very strong reliance on private practice. Fees are all over the place. And it was generally recognised that people not being able to access the services in a meaningful way was a disadvantage to the community. And everyone, of course, wants to join AHPRA. AHPRA is tremendously expensive to run, and the government has no appetite for expanding AHPRA, which I think currently has 16 professions. They have no appetite to expanding it to 50. It would be a nightmare for the budget. So part of the Dawson report, the final report, which has just come out recently, and it was in the second report as well, was the proposal of a different way of managing regulation. One of the reasons why some professions are on AHPRA is because they're perceived to be high risk. And generally that means that there is a significant risk of physical harm or possibly death when things go wrong from a clinical governance point of view. Professions that were perceived to be lower risk were not regulated by AHPRA, which, in many ways was a compliment to all the work that you do, but they had become to be seen as second-class citizens. And so the report recognised that, and it has called for the creation of a professions registration model, which would utilise the membership model that exists at the moment. So the practitioner registration would still be with the membership body, but the membership body would be overseen, audited and accredited by AHPRA. So when we said before the registration would be kind of overseen by AHPRA, that's what we meant. We meant at a higher umbrella level and what happens for AHPRA for those 16 professions at the moment. There would also be a third tier of unregulated professions, completely unregulated, or completely either unregulated or self-regulated, but without the auspice of AHPRA. So there would be 3 levels. And I think this is a really exciting opportunity for the professions who are able to make that step into that space. The perks of that model, and they're specifically articulated in the report, are that title protection would be provided, that those professions would be seen as equal to the AHPRA professions, so they would have no disadvantage in being able to receive Medicare funding, to be able to be employed by government, or to be able to work with private health insurers. And that would be a tremendous opportunity. But also they would be included in things like the National Workforce Data Inclusion, which would mean that they would be able to become a key part of policy, because without that data, it's very hard to make a case for government investment. So in many ways, this report that probably people aren't thinking about that much is actually just as important for counsellors and psychotherapists as the national standards itself, because this is the framework that would deliver a lot of the things that everyone has wanted, in particular the title protection, which the title protection in turn relies upon registration becoming mandatory. So those 2 pieces have to fit together. So the report is publicly available. If you Google APRA review or NRAS regulation, you'll find your way to it. We've also got links in our latest news section, and we've had mentions in our e-newsletter over the last kind of 6 to 12 months. And I think it's something that's worth having a look at if you're interested in what the future of the space is likely to be. People who are asking about GST, that is another piece of this same puzzle. We are not the only allied health profession who are not exempted from GST. However, I think it would be a good and reasonable assumption that professions that are able to get onto the professions registration list would have a good case for being included almost as a block lot with the APRA professions in exclusion from GST. So, this really does have the opportunity to deliver a lot of what people have been after. Nigel, is there anything I've missed with that?
I think that's good. I can drop that document I can't drop it. I'm just going to drop that document into the chat. For those that are interested, they can read it. I've just got it here to drop in. It's just about reassurance, everyone. You're in the right place. You can see that we are connected where we need to be connected. We know what's happening in the regulatory space. We are paying attention to the big picture, and we're paying attention to the details. And the big picture is we are here to represent our members. Our focus is on stages 2 and 3. We have an eye on career stage 1 and a curiosity as to whether that would be a space that we need to consider. What is the government's preferred model? We don't know yet, but we do know that they want a self-regulatory model. The question as to whether there will be 1 or 2 peak bodies, we don't know yet. We believe that ideally that there would be 1. How that would come about, that is something that we are willing to have transparent, open, collegial and collaborative conversations about, so long as the focus is very clearly on the highest, the utmost integrity, credibility of our profession and the safety of the people we serve. That's what we exist for. That's what we stand for. That's what we've always been here for. And that's what we will continue to do. And we will do what we have to do to maintain the quality, the standards, the integrity, the credibility, so that counselling and psychotherapy take their rightful place in Australian society. We know, and the incredible benefit our work can have on people, and we need to do whatever we can to ensure that the most people possible can have access to our work. And realistically, this is the way that we do it. And we are consistently working very hard in that direction to make sure that that's what happens. Was there some information on that last slide, Johanna, that was relevant? There's a few more questions to answer. I'll put the final call out there. There's some links in the chat for people to take a look at. We have there's a few more questions, so we'll just try and answer all those questions before we finish up today.
Yep. I wasn't suggesting that we were finishing. I was just turning off the sharing so that we could see each other's faces a little bit better, given that we were just kind of at that formality point. There's been a few questions about psychotherapy, so I'm happy to speak to that, and then we can look at any other questions. And there's also a little bit about RPL. So would you like me to address both of those, Nigel?
Sure, thanks.
Okay. People who have been involved in this process closely and who had taken the time to read the earlier drafts of the national standards, and I think we're up to about draft 4 or 5 by now, will be aware that the first couple of drafts had a different configuration. There were a range of benefits to that previous configuration, and there were a range of negatives to that configuration. The negatives was there was a lot of blurring about experience and qualifications, and it was kind of a bit all over the place. However, it did have one thing that we were really quite pleased with, and that was a specialist category. And we did advocate for the creation of that category, and we got it into the first draft, and that was based on the idea that people who had undertaken significant additional advanced training would be in the specialist category, and that would be appropriate for their recognition for their training. And we would have been really happy to see that continue through to the final stage. That document went to broader consultation, and unfortunately it appears that feedback from other stakeholders was that there weren't enough people in that category, or that there wasn't enough documentation to support exactly what that specialist area looked like to retain that particular category in the national standards. And that was disappointing for us. We would have liked to have seen it there because we do believe that we have a significant cohort of members who would have been eligible for that. However, that's not the end of the road for the idea of specialisation and advanced recognition in counselling and psychotherapy. And so we continue to develop certification programs that recognise advanced training. We continue to promote badges and certification that enable people to recognise or enable the community to recognise people who have undertaken additional training. One of the benefits of the fact that psychotherapy is in this document, even though it is a little less defined than we might have liked, is that it will invariably have to be considered as part of the title protection process. And that will give us another opportunity to negotiate for how that space is defined. Whereas if this was only the national standards for counsellors, then we would have been waiting for a whole new government and a whole new appetite to tackle this area. And it is realistic that governments tend to go into something, do one big project and then move off to something else. So I think that the option that where we've ended up is the best possible option for what we could justify at the time. People who are associated with our College of Psychotherapy, which has an amazing leadership group, will know that they're all working incredibly hard on producing the documentation that we will need when those conversations resume. So I hope that helps. The other question I saw there was about recognition of prior learning. And now the recognition of prior learning process is dependent upon assessment against our competencies. And that in itself is a fairly complicated process, but you'd be aware that our competencies were published earlier this year, which is not that long ago, given how many things we've been trying to do and how many balls we've been keeping in the air. So our intention is to appoint a new member of staff to help us design a formal assessment framework to work on those competencies. And that will be the first step of reopening our RPL pathway. That said, we do anticipate that, like other allied health professions, we are going to rely heavily on the completion of accredited courses in the future. So if people are looking at courses and thinking about what they should do, an accredited course is the best, most rigorous and most effective and certainly most expedient way to become registered as a counsellor. And the PACFA accreditation standards have been hugely influential in the creation of the national standards. We don't have to change a thing. Or, our training providers who are going to be using our accreditation standards already meet all the national standards. And so I think that says a lot about the respect that the department had for the hard work that our team had done in that development. And that was a really expansive consultation process over 12 to 18 months. And, I think that means it really speaks to the credibility of the PACFA registration model and how well positioned our members are in this current landscape. Nigel?
Thanks, yeah. No, I won't add anything to that, but I just want to know, do you feel like you've addressed the GST and the Medicare question and what this means in terms of those two? Those are big areas of interest for us as counsellors and psychotherapists. And how does this impact that advocacy?
Well, look, the national standards puts us one great big step closer to both those things, and that's really exciting. So and basically that's as much as I can say about it, because the government has been very clear to us that the completion of this project and the implementation of this, and so therefore that means the rollout, which we're talking 3 to 5 years. We think we're talking 3 to 5 years at this point. I think there's a really good synergy around a whole lot of the health reform at system level and at individual profession level. At the same time, the Medicare Better Access Program has been under review, and it is likely to change significantly in the next couple of years. We will have a really shiny, polished profession with an excellent registration scheme, and we will have a efficient, effective, broader regulation body that will enable credibility. And I think that our professions will be superbly poised to go forward and to gain Medicare and to get GST exemption. And so that's what's really excited about this. This has been a long path. Started long before me, and but we have been laying the bricks, and that brick by brick, it is getting there, and I think we're really, really well placed.
Yeah, thanks, Johanna. I was just reflecting today, it sort of took me by surprise. How long have I personally been on this journey of trying to figure out what's going on with counselling and psychotherapy in Australia and what do we do about it? And I realised that it's been 20 years for me. So I've been thinking about this and working towards it for 20 years. And it's extremely exciting to me personally to sit here today and feel like we're we are on the precipice that the change that we've been working so hard to see, and the hard work that we've done behind the scenes to understand the landscape, to understand the history, to understand the dynamics at play in our very, very complicated space. And we've been able to start to clear up a lot of those muddied waters and forge a way forward. And the government, in its wisdom and its, little $300,000 project has taken the first step in the right direction. I noticed that final question was taken down, but you felt like you'd answered that series of questions.
Look, there's been a lot of questions about the licensing, and the answer to most of them is we don't know yet.
We anticipate stage 3. It'll come with your registration. That'll be part of your registration package. That'll be automatic. Stage 1 and 2, you would have to apply for it. If you apply for something, you have to pay for somebody to do the work to conduct that assessment. Will ACA and PACFA be doing the same thing? If there remains an ACA and a PACFA as two distinct bodies at some stage in the future, then we would absolutely expect that we would expect that we would be doing exactly the same things. We would have exactly the same standards. Otherwise, this entire project would be pointless, because that is precisely what this project has been designed to solve. It wants to, this project is elevating the entire profession, and what the stage 2 and 3 categories tell us, the entire profession is being elevated to PACFA standards. We're very proud of that.
And so,
are there any more questions?
I think, Nigel, we should put that back to the people. They should all be very proud for all the work that you've undertaken, for the leadership roles you've taken on in the profession. And it's just really pleasing to see recognition of that from the government. And, please read the fine print and make sure that you appreciate that has occurred.
Okay. Yeah, big thanks. Big thanks to the board. Big thanks to all of our volunteers. For those that don't know, we're a volunteer-driven organisation. We have hundreds of volunteers that really are so passionate and work in it's like tentacles out into the world. Where we all contribute what we know, and we bring that knowledge and information back to the core. And it's the responsibility of the board. We have a wonderful representative board who are so deeply knowledgeable about our profession and about what's needed in our profession. And yeah, they do a fantastic job on all behalves. And we all do it with volunteers. PACFA is not a for-profit entity. It doesn't profit anybody other than the profession itself and the members of the profession. So deep appreciation to everybody who contributes. And thank you to all of you for showing up and showing an interest, and, part of go spread the word, go and inform people who don't know what you know about what you know, so that we have a better informed profession across the board.
Look, and I'm just going to return to the point I often make to people. Nigel is so right. At the end of the day, our membership numbers are going to matter going forward. And we're also going to do our very best to take care of our members, because that's our job. So if you can encourage anyone to come and join us, that would be greatly appreciated, because it will, it's important that PACFA's numbers continue to grow.
Yeah. That's if you want to be the change you want to see if you want to see the change, and you want to see that change,
you want to see.
Be the change you want to see, and advocate for PACFA membership, because there's a lot of people sitting on the fence. We know that there's a lot of people sitting on the fence, and there's a lot of people saying, why? What's the point? There's a huge point. Joining PACFA and bolstering PACFA's numbers will make a huge difference to everybody in our profession now and long into the future. It's the answer to so many of the problems faced by our profession is join PACFA. I
think we're done, Nigel.
I think we might be finished. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thank you so much for all your kind comments. Really appreciate it.
Much appreciated.
Take care and good night.